To be here. I love this conference. I presented last year. Some may think like I look familiar. I was here last year for one of the sessions, and some of what I'll talk about today will be some overlap with that session. So there will be some booster sessions for people that attended last year, but also we're going to take some things in some new directions as well. So by the title of my presentation, you know, you might be thinking like, what's she going to talk about here? What is this going to be about? It has this kind of like be all you can be vibe, right? Like, go get it, everybody. And, you know, you might be thinking, that sounds like a lot. Like, I'm already doing a lot. Do I have to do more? So, you know, this idea of like, be the caregiver you can be. Do more, everybody. That's the goal, right? Don't forget to smile, too. Make sure you're really positive, okay? Hair in place, right? Gotta look good. And, you know, basically be a superhuman. That's the point of today's presentation, right? I just want to pause and say that's not the point of today's presentation, as people's stress levels are going up and you're like, I don't want to listen to this. We're not going to talk about that stuff. I wanted to show you an image I found too. This is Superman, okay? Apparently Superman's not doing enough as a superhero. He also has been hitting the gym. I'm like looking at this image like, what has he been doing? He's like 8 hours a day of lifting. He's buff. So that's not the goal. We're not trying to take Superman and turn him into buff Superman or buffer Superman. This is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about being the person that you want to be based on your own values, based on what it is, who it is that you want to be. It doesn't have to be Superman. Okay, so we're going to first kind of talk about how to behave, how to act in ways that you're proud of. We're going to cover some of the stuff that gets in the way, some of the things that derail us a little bit in being who we want to be. And then when that happens, how do you get back on track? So it's much more simple than doing more, putting a smile on your face, being a superhero. Okay, it's a lot simpler than that. So today's presentation is founded in science. This isn't the Beth Fauth philosophy of how to be better, right? It's been based in acceptance and commitment therapy, or what we call ACT. This is a form of therapy that's been around since the 1980s. Very, very well established scientific support. So there's over 1,000 randomized clinical trials. That's the most robust kind of science you can do. And we know that ACT works. So you're hearing a snippet of a larger type of therapeutic approach, but just feel comfortable that this isn't just my harebrained idea. It is a form of cognitive behavioral therapy. It is basically what we call like a third wave or a new wave of cognitive behavioral therapy. There's lots of mindfulness components built into ACT, and I've seen some of the presentations included, and some of the, you know, the Zen room is some breathing work, and all of that fits 100% in with the ACT like philosophy. The really cool thing about ACT and why I was really excited to bring this to dementia caregiving is that it works well for people that have a diagnosable mental health problem. So people that have clinical levels of depression and anxiety, ACT is a very appropriate kind of part of the therapeutic plan. But it also works with everyday stress. It works with the difficulties that we have every day, all of us, caregiver or non-caregiver. So I just kind of felt like, you know, this is a good thing because some caregivers are at that clinically significant level and some aren't. And we don't want them to get there either. So it's really nice in that it kind of works well with both types of populations. It helps people to live with stress more comfortably. In a nutshell, if you could tie the whole therapy down to a phrase, it would be that. We're not going to get rid of the stress. It's not a kind of therapy that can take that away. And caregiving is that kind of situation. It doesn't go away. It's part of what you live with. And so the approach that ACT takes is, let's get you to live with it more comfortably. Okay, that's the goal. So we're going to talk about some of that today. Okay, we'll get into some of these activities. So this is a, you know, a sort of a who do you look up to kind of conversation. So we're first going to talk about what was found in 1999. I know that that's a long time ago, okay, but this was the time that Gallup did a poll in 1999 where they were asking about like heroes and who you look up to over the last century. So that's why it's 1999, because that's the last time they did this poll. And these were the top 5. And interestingly enough, when they asked folks who it is that you look up to, they also asked why. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is the why. Like, what is it about these people that made them the top 5, right? And so these were the kind of characteristics that people mentioned. So with Mother Teresa, they talked that they really valued her compassion and her service-mindedness. With Martin Luther King, it was that they appreciated his nonviolent approach, that he was just and fair. With John F. Kennedy, talked about him being hopeful, and in terms of, as being an elected official, being very approachable. People appreciated Albert Einstein for his intelligence and his creativity. And Helen Keller, she was endorsed for being perseverant and also being an advocate for other people with disabilities. And so, this is like kind of a nice place to start, like recognizing that, people become respected because of how they do things. Sometimes it's the big accomplishments that they've done, but it's also really those characteristics that we value in certain people. Also, I'll mention, you've heard never meet your hero, right? These people aren't perfect. If you listen to a lot of stories about their life and what they went through, they're not perfect people, but they still did things in a way that was very respected, okay? So you can pause. I want you to think, this is kind of an exercise that you'll do, is who do you look up to? It might be those 5, it's probably someone else. So I want you to think about, who is that person and what's the characteristic that you value most in that person? I really want you to stray away from thinking about accomplishments. So I don't want it to, you be thinking of, my dad, I really appreciated that, he made $1 million before he hit the age of 30. My dad did not, by the way, so you know, but that's not what we mean. That's an accomplishment or an outcome. Think about the characteristics that that person has. These were some of the characteristics I listed for those other kind of famous 5 folks. Okay, so you have that kind of in your head, right? What it is, what characteristic this person has. Now I want you to do this for yourself. It's a little harder to do it for yourself sometimes. It's easy to identify a famous person in your family that you're like, oh, yeah, man, they're amazing, and I think that they are blank. But I want you to think about this for yourself, that if you could think about, how would people talk about you? What would you really love them to say about you? Not your accomplishments, but how you act. And another way of thinking about it, and maybe even more importantly, is, when do you feel proud? Like, when you do something in one of these ways, how does that make you feel? Like you really love it when you do this. Does everyone have this now for themselves? Okay. So hang on to that adjective for a second. But we want to start to think about these adjectives, these characteristics. These are our values, okay? Not religious or political values necessarily. These are our values, our personal values. And values are a compass, okay? So if you think about a compass, you're walking in the woods, the compass keeps you on your path. The compass lets you know when you're off your path, right? When you're kind of wandering in the wrong direction, a compass leads you back. Values are the same thing, okay? Values, these personal values, are the things that get us to where we need to be the person we want to be. So when we have this characteristic, that one you had in mind for yourself, it's not just a descriptive, right? we say it's an adverb. It's how you can act. So if you were somebody that said, I really love it when I am compassionate, like I just think I'm at my best self when I'm compassionate, I can behave then compassionately. That's something I can start to integrate into my daily life, right? And we have all these different words out there. There was a long, long list of things you could have chosen. So you don't have to choose any of these. You choose what really connects with you. Okay, so what do I mean by like turning these into actions? We often think about our, like, when we look up and respect, let's say those 5 individuals that we started off with, we really respect them for some of these big moment things they did, right? The big speeches, the big nonviolent protests, these big actions. And that is valuable. You can still incorporate values into these big actions. So here's some examples of like when we see this really come through. So, sometimes there's a situation where somebody has harmed another person, maybe by accident, maybe on purpose. In the news, that the family members, let's say, of those who've been harmed, will come out and say, I forgive that person. That's a big thing to do, right? To say this is an individual who harmed my loved one. I'm going to publicly state that I forgive this person. And that's because for that person, forgiveness is a really important value, okay? Another example, somebody who you know and you know is very generous, and they donate a large amount of money to their cause, to a library in their community. They value generosity, right? They're behaving in big ways. And that's absolutely to be applauded, right? We love it when we see people doing these big, amazing things. But really, I'm not asking you to donate to a library, okay? I'm not asking you to forgive, like do these big public actions. What we want to talk about is how to do this in our everyday life, how these values can start to be woven in to all these activities that we do. So our everyday tasks. So this would be something like, if you value compassion, it's one of mine. When I respond to my spouse, right, this could be in a caregiving situation or a non-caregiving situation, I can respond compassionately. I may not always want to be compassionate, right? I may want to be a little selfish sometimes, but in my brain, I can think, wait a minute, that my value is compassion, and I'm going to respond to this person with compassion. This is a kind of a fun one for me. I'm a very busy person. I really value efficiency. I'm a multitasker. So when I wait in a long line, like in a public area, I'm a little antsy. It's painful. It's physically painful. I have always loved that when there's somebody in line in a public place and everyone's getting annoyed and everyone's eye rolling and everyone's like big sighs, there's a person that's in there having a good time. They're talking to people, they're being funny, they're connecting, they're introducing people. I'm like, that's amazing, right? Nobody wants to be in a long line, but why don't we do it with joy? If we do it joyfully, that's really not a bad experience, right? So again, these are just these little moments of like difficult situation, but if you align it to your values, then it's not that big a deal. And often, like when I'm in line and my gut reaction is to be impatient, I kind of get this little like, hey, wait a minute, check yourself here. How do you want to be like, how do you want to be seen? How do you want people to, how do you want other people to feel? And I think, all right, let's chill out. Let's have fun. Let's be nice. Let's go talk to somebody. And after waiting in that line, I feel better. I'm still in the line. Can't get out, right? But at least I'm proud of the way I behaved in that line. Last example, something that maybe you're doing where you're in a care situation and you're having to feed your loved one, and it's slow and it's a little frustrating, right? But you might say, I love patient people, right? Like I appreciate when people are patient. That's something I value. How could I do this small action patiently? So the adjectives, the characteristics that you value, it doesn't have to be that one that you picked about yourself, but that one you picked is probably pretty important, okay? But it could be others, right? Like I would be, again, compassion's a big one for me. Humor and joy is a big one for me. Being patient, working on that one, a little harder. But this is where we can sort of take these values and start to weave them into all these things that we do on a daily basis. And again, you're still doing the things on the daily basis. That's not going away, but you're doing them in a way that makes you feel better about yourself. So, solved all the problems. We figured it out, you guys. This is how to be the caregiver you want to be, okay? You do things in ways that you're proud of. Identify the values, identify those characteristics that you really connect with, and then try to incorporate them into your daily actions. So no problem, right? I'm gonna get out of here. You guys can go do that drawing. I know I'm the one keeping you from the drawing, by the way. I'm very well aware of that. Clearly, there's a step here. There's something we're missing. And let's talk about that next. What gets in the way, okay? So the what gets in the way piece, and remember, we're gonna find ways to get back on track too. So it's not just identifying the problem here. We've got some solutions we're gonna talk about today too. Okay, so being very vulnerable today, I'm sharing a lot of my inner demons with you all, so lucky you. We're gonna talk about the tale of two Beth Fauths, okay? I think about sometimes like if an alien visited Earth and saw me in one scenario, they would be extremely concerned when they saw me in a different scenario, like, wait a minute, I thought this person was calm, right? All right, so let's talk about these kinds of issues that have come up with me. These are examples from the last week, okay? Last Sunday, I drove from Logan to Bear Lake. It was gorgeous. Music on. I was by myself, so quite nice, peaceful. The foliage is still up. It's absolutely gorgeous, okay? Also last week, I was driving on I-15, and I was trying to get off I-15 onto an off-ramp in Sandy in rush hour. Okay, so when the aliens saw me the first time, right? I am so chill. I am like, I love my life. This is so gorgeous. I'm so lucky. All of my values are just like tapping me on the back, like, killing it today, Beth. Like, this is amazing. All right. And then we've got the other situation. All right. So what's the difference, right? There's some key differences between these two things. And the biggest and most important one is how big the challenge is. I was not being challenged on my Bear Lake drive, right? I had all the resources in the world to live according to my values. Nothing was pressuring me. So I could be wonderful. I was wonderful, you guys. It was a great day. I sparkled. I was so happy. All right. Then we've got the day I was not so sparkly, right? So the other thing that's going on is that, this one is challenging. By the way, for some reason in Sandy, nobody believes that they should let you over to get off the highway. I'm like, if I get off the highway, you can get on the highway. It would be brilliant, but they just don't want me to do that. All right, so what's going on for me too, a big difference between these two scenarios is my thoughts and my emotions that are happening in this situation, okay? So again, I'm full disclosure, I was panicking. Let's just say it like it was. I was not calm. Anxiety was through the roof. And I was saying things out loud, very loudly, things like, these people are going to kill me. I mean, these are actual thoughts going in my head, okay? Justifiable because a little aggressive, but let's talk about these for a second. So in addition to the bigger challenge, I also have these things going on related to these really intense thoughts, really loud thoughts, really intense emotions. All right, so we're gonna break this down a little bit in, the people that kind of like the math, compartmentalize, we're gonna compartmentalize this a little bit. So we're gonna call this the stress meter. And this blue is the situation I'm in, right? And we're gonna go with the sandy one because that one's a little more dramatic. So we've got the blue of I'm just in a stressful situation. There isn't any other way to call it like it is, right? That stress is gonna be there. The challenge is gonna be there. It's not going away. I can't fix it. It's there. But then we've got this orange box, which is, as I mentioned, these really big thoughts, really powerful thoughts, big emotions happening at the same time, which is also like adding some stress to the situation, okay? Now, you might be thinking that I'm gonna say, oh, we shouldn't have those thoughts and emotions. Just drive. You don't need to have big emotions, big thoughts. Absolutely, that's not what I'm saying. Do not go home with this message that we wanna get rid of the orange box. The orange box is there. It's a human response. It's actually probably a very protective response. So, I probably did need to have some anxiety in that driving scenario, probably helped me like actually get off the highway. So we're never gonna say, get rid of the orange. But what we tend to do, one of the things that humans do really well, I'll mention this too, sorry, I forgot about this. The gray area is what I'm gonna call like the reserves. Like, what do you have left in the tank? What could you tap into if things got even worse? If a lion stepped out in front of your car as you're trying to get off the highway, right? That would be like, all right, well, we got an extra 20% or so we could use for that. But what really ends up happening is this red zone. And this is where I was not particularly proud of my behavior, okay? I was not living according to my values. I was not a sane person. And so then I'm like mad at myself for being stressed out. And I'm getting in this red area where I'm like, stop freaking out. You're totally freaking out, right? A lot of guilt, shame. Like, I'm just like being really hard on myself. And I'm being hard on myself, not about the scenario, but about how I reacted to the scenario. So this is this red area where we talk about kind of resisting those thoughts and emotions. Like, instead of just saying like, okay, that was a stressful situation and I was a little elevated, right? You're really being hard on yourself about the way that you're handling the situation. That's the red zone. So we're gonna keep working through this analogy a little bit. All right, the red zone again is this thing that we do to try to stay away from the orange zone. We are uncomfortable when difficult thoughts and emotions come up. It's understandable, right? We wanna be comfortable. So we do these things to try to push away or avoid or resist those thoughts and emotions as they come up. And everybody has their own technique. Not everybody does the same thing. It may be that you try to avoid scenarios where difficult thoughts and emotions come up. You just stop going out socially because it's hard, right? It may be that you try to block emotions. It's like, put the smile on your face, everything's fine. You know everything is not fine, but you're really, really being like, keep it together, right? So that's another technique a lot of people use. Telling yourself that you're bad or that your thoughts are bad, that you are an insane person, that you are out of control, that you can't handle this. All those kinds of things also come up, right? We really sort of you beat yourself up. And then, yeah, the last one, yell and slam things. It has happened, right? So what we're saying here is that all of this stuff is like adding stress on top of the stress, on top of the stress, okay? The blue is the stress. You've got the context that you're in, the caregiver situation that you're in. The orange is the feelings and thoughts that come up. That's sort of this sort of stressful reaction. But the red is like, yeah, let's add one more thing there. Let's throw guilt in. Let's feel guilty about all the situation going through. So again, this is like where we're going to start is kind of talking a little bit about some of the red, how we can reduce the red. All right, so again, we're going back to our plan here. We've already talked about values and how identifying your values, using your values like a compass to try to direct your actions in a way that you love, that's really important. And we've also kind of covered what gets in the way. And what gets in the way is stress. It's stressful thoughts. It's these big emotions. It's these like things that you've said to yourself that are not helpful, that are not compassionate. And so we're going to talk about hopefully the most important thing, which is how to get back on track. Okay, so what happens? Because emotions and thoughts are going to come up. We don't want to get rid of those. We just want to live with them a little better. Okay, so we've talked about the stress meter. We'll revisit that one quickly. We know that we've got the situation that has to be there. That's not going to change. We've got thoughts and emotions that are going to show up. We don't want to get rid of those. Might be nice if we could minimize the impact that they have. And for sure, we don't want the red. Okay, so the difficult thoughts and emotions have a right to be there. So you want to sort of say, listen, I'm reacting to a stressful situation. I'm feeling emotions. I'm feeling big emotions. I'm feeling anger. I'm feeling emotions that I don't really want to be around. Anger, frustration, feeling overwhelmed, burnt out. They are allowed to be there. Okay, so we don't want to fight them. We don't want to sit there and shame ourselves for having them. We start to say, okay, I'm in a stressful situation. I'm having these thoughts and feelings. That's all right. That's step one. That helps us with that red zone. So we don't want to do these sort of avoidant behaviors, pushing them away. We just want to say, all right, they're there. But how can we work with the orange a little bit? So when we've got these thoughts and emotions that are coming up, how do we kind of make them less powerful and like less likely to where we sort of, don't like the way we're behaving? Again, acknowledging them is really helpful first step. So when you're in a moment, when you're feeling heated or really sad or something that's really uncomfortable, sometimes naming that is just the first step and it helps, okay? So an example would be, I'm feeling whatever, I'm having the thought, whatever. So when I'm driving on, I-15 in that example, I can say, I'm feeling anxious right now. I'm feeling panic. And already just by saying that, it's not in control of me. I'm just noticing that it's there and it has a right to be there. I can say, I'm having the thought that these people are going to kill me. That doesn't mean they're actually going to kill me, right? It just means I'm having the thought that they're going to kill me. So it's this like kind of a way of getting more comfortable with those thoughts to be there and taking some of the power and control away from them. They're not real. They're not actually, you don't have to accept that that's the reality. It's just kind of like, I'm noticing that this is here, okay? Right away, you'll notice that actually can start to help reduce some of the anxiety or sadness or stress of the moment. Also being compassionate towards yourself. We're not great at that. Caregivers are really good at being compassionate towards others, right? It's a self-selection process. The people that are compassionate are the ones that become caregivers. But we're not always really good at being compassionate towards ourselves. And so again, when big thoughts or things like overwhelming situations come up, we're not always great at being kind to ourselves. And so being kind to yourself is also being like, It's okay that I had this thought. It's a thought. It's okay that I felt anger. It's anger, right? It's sort of like allowing those things to be there. Also, they have value, right? So we don't even really want to think about emotions as being good or bad. There's certainly emotions that are easier. Happiness, that one's easy. We like that one, right? Because it's easy. But even anger, even frustration, those things are allowed to be there, right? And we don't want to say, we don't want a life without emotion. And so it comes with all of them. It comes with a full package, right? And so it's wonderful when we have pleasant emotions, and it's challenging when they're not so pleasant. But again, they still have a right to be there, and really justifiably in a lot of situations. And again, we talked about this a second ago, that they're not the truth, these thoughts that you're having. So something like, I can't do this anymore, right? In a heat of the moment when you're so overwhelmed and one more thing happens and you're just like, I can't do this anymore. Again, that's a really overwhelming feeling. It's a really powerful thought. It kind of makes you like, it's a big part of that orange, right? It's taking up a lot of space. But if you can say, I'm having the thought that I can't do this anymore, it kind of takes the power away from it. It says, I'm having that thought. Like, okay, that showed up for me. It's not truthful. It doesn't truly mean I can't do this anymore, right? So these are just some kind of basic techniques, self-talk that we can do. An ACT can teach some of these techniques. Let's talk about a few more examples that are a little more fun. These ones are a little like, again, the math people are like, love it. Everyone else is like, I have this graph, I don't want to look at it anymore. Okay, so this one's more fun. Okay, so in the moment, right, let's say you're feeling kind of this big emotion, these big thoughts. I want you to think of, this is called passengers on a bus, so you can remind yourself of this example at a later point. There's also some online stuff if you ever want to work through this example. If you type in passengers on a bus, this activity will come up. So in this scenario, you are the bus driver. And unfortunately for you, your bus is full of unruly passengers. Okay, so here you are, you're trying to get them, let's say, to the airport, right? And they are screaming at you. And they're telling you that you're terrible, and they're telling you you're going the wrong way, and they're telling you, you can't do this, right? And so as a bus driver, you've got some options here. Okay, we'll talk through 3 options you have. You could fight them, okay? You could shout at them. You could park the bus, turn around and hit them. I mean, it is an option to actually fight back. You could listen to them. They seem to know what they're doing, right? So if they're telling you you're going the wrong way, you're like, oh, sorry, you're right. I'll go this way, okay? Or you can drive the course that you know you're supposed to be on and just be willing to have these disruptive people on your bus. It's not enjoyable, right? It's not a good day. You don't really love it, but which could we choose? Which would you choose? I know some people are like, I'd fight. Straight up. That's adding stress on stress, by the way. What do you think? You can shout it out. 3, drive the course, right? We're like, of course you would drive the course. Of course you wouldn't fight. Of course you wouldn't listen to them. Okay, so this is a metaphor for your thoughts and emotions, that they are allowed to be there. They are not always great. They're not always fun or pleasant, but you're just gonna do what you wanna do anyway. You're gonna act in a way that you wanna behave, even though you're feeling really sad, or you're feeling total grief, you're feeling frustration, all of these big things that come up. Okay, they're there, and I'm gonna drive the bus. Another example, hits a little closer to home for me. I just want to know if anybody has ever been to a youth sporting event. I thought about this after. I've always taught people about passengers on the bus, and I was like, I'm going to change it. I'm going to add this other one in here. All right, so you're at a sporting event, and you're the ref. Sorry. And the parents are yelling, and not at their kid. They're yelling at you, right? So I will show you a picture. This is a picture that I took. It's blurry, but I'm going to explain it first. This was at a sporting event it was a indoor soccer for 6-year-olds, okay? His t-shirt says, "This isn't on ESPN, relax." And I was like, I love this guy, right? Because it is so stressful at these events because the parents are nuts. Like I've got kids in volleyball, football, soccer, like I've been to all of them, and they are all insane. They all just scream at this poor ref who is just trying to, do something for 6-year-olds, right? So this is a great passenger on the bus example, right? You have the ref. The ref could scream back. They usually don't. I don't know if they're medicated or what, but they're usually very calm. All right. So he could try to be louder than them. Probably not a safe measure because parents are nuts. He could listen to them. I have actually been to a game where a ref reversed a call because the parents were yelling at them. And I was like, oh man, that was a bad idea. Because that makes the parents louder, right? Don't do that. If you guys are refs, just stick to it, right? Make your call. Do what you need to do. And there's going to be noisy people around. There's going to be parents there. Also, parents do have a right to be there to watch their kids. They should be behaving themselves, and they're not. But, they're annoying. But a ref is like, I'm just going to do what I need to do. Okay. So this is, again, it's an analogy for your thoughts and emotions. So be the ref, right? Just say, I'm going to try to do what I am doing. I can hear these thoughts and emotions. They're annoying, but I'm going to try to do what I want to do in the way I want to do it. Okay. Another something you can do in the moment. I noticed you guys have had some awesome stuff on your, like the presentations today on mindfulness. And small meditations, I'm not going to walk through this one, but this is something that works really, really well. I'll explain it. We won't do it as a group, but I'll explain how it works because you can probably do it on your own. But any meditation is great, but this is something that's nice because you can do it in a stressful moment, in public. Nobody really knows that you're doing it. But basically, as you start to feel those big emotions coming in. So the most recent time I did this, also full disclosure, I opened the bedroom door to my son's bedroom. He's 15. And his bedroom's in the basement, so I'm not down there all the time. I was like, oh, something's bubbling up. I got rage, right? Like all this stuff starts, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's filthy. He doesn't respect my house, blah, blah, blah. You know how that goes. And I was like, wait. Okay, that's not gonna make the room clean. So I just did this for like 10 seconds. I said, okay, I'm noticing I'm frustrated. I'm gonna put that thought on a leaf and I'm gonna visualize it floating down the stream. It's allowed to be there. I can be frustrated, right? I can say I'm noticing that I'm having this thought that he doesn't respect my house, right? I can put that on a leaf and kind of let it float away. So you can do these things in the moment where you start to say, I'm having these thoughts and emotions. They're allowed to be there, and I'm going to interact with them in a better way. I'm not going to try to, yell and scream or slam. My first instinct. I was like, okay, let me have a minute, or actually 10 seconds was enough for me to be like, breather, connect, right? Be present. So lots of different meditation techniques, including ones that can be really brief. 10 seconds, 30 seconds is sometimes enough just to get you to react better to your own emotions. This is another really good, like a visual that you can have in the moment. Again, it's kind of like the compass idea, but all of our daily actions are what we can call choice points. We have a decision to make in how we behave in that moment. And we can lean towards values. We can sort of think about, how do I want to be? That's leaning towards. Or we can lean away, right? And sometimes we do. It will happen that you lean away. There will be times that you don't behave in the way that you want to. But then after that, you can say, all right, I was kind of leaning away from how I want to behave. I'm going to lean towards. You can do this moment to moment. So if you find yourself not behaving in ways that you're super proud of, again, don't be so mad at yourself. Just say, all right, I'm going to lean towards it now. I'm going to lean towards my values. I'm going to think about my compass. I'm going to think about who it is I want to be and how I want to be. And this, just again, quick little choice point, thinking of that in your brain is sometimes enough to be like, okay, I'm going to stop and I'm going to pivot and do something differently. This is the last activity I'll show you today. This is one I did last year, so some of you guys might remember this, but this one is one a lot of people like. So I was like, I have to put it in there for the new people. This is called changing a but to an and this is a really nice way to kind of summarize a lot of how ACT can work for people. Probably the most common thing, the top line there. I want to exercise, but I'm tired, right? So we have all these things that come up, things we really want to do, but then you've got these emotions or thoughts or something going on that makes you feel like, but you can't, right? So you want to reconcile with somebody, but that's going to be really hard. Or you want to go out with your friends, but you're really busy. So whatever these statements are, whatever the things are that you really like to do, sometimes you're going to feel derailed by the context that you're in, the situation you're in, the emotions that you're feeling. So this is a really simple exercise where you can say, I'm going to change the but to an and. I want to exercise and I'm tired. It fully acknowledges that you're tired. You don't have to deny that you're tired. You are tired. That's okay. But it also gives you permission to go exercise anyway. right? So it's like saying, I can have a context that's difficult, but I can still do what I want to do, like what I think is really important. I want to make up with somebody, and it will be hard. It will be hard. But you have like more permission now to go try to make up with that person that's important to you. You want to go out with your friends and you're busy? Okay, you're going to be busy. You can still go out with friends, right? So this kind of like, it's this nice balance of like looking to like what's preventing you from doing things in the way you want to do or doing the things you want to do. And really then kind of finding a way like, but if that first part aligns with my values, like that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go towards it. I'm going to lean towards it. All right, so this is what we started with, right? The be all you can be. We're not, right? That's not the point of the talk. So you guys agree? I didn't force you to be superheroes. I'm not asking you to take on any more than you're already doing. I know you're doing a lot. Don't take on more. That's not the goal. The goal is to do what you're doing already and just do it in a way that you really value. So this is a slide. This is just a summary slide. I know that I'm flipping through things really, really quickly, but if you're trying to remember like, wow, she talked about a lot of stuff. I did. I talked about a lot of stuff. But I want to just kind of leave this up there for people to be like, okay, what was that process we went through, right? About identifying what's important, understanding what gets in the way. Pick your favorite technique. You do not need to do all these. Sometimes it's just one thing people really connect with. And that's enough for them to be like, okay, this is helping me do things in a way that I really value. I will pause and stop for questions, but there's just a couple of like things I wanted to alert you guys to since I have the podium. So I am at Utah State University. We have the Alzheimer's Disease and Dementia Research Center there. It covers the state, okay? So it's not a Logan thing. It is a Logan thing, but it's also a Utah thing. And so I just want to alert you guys, we have lots of research opportunities. We have a study right now with caregivers focusing on their health and their sleep. I'm going to be recruiting for a study on acceptance and commitment therapy, what we just learned, on an online self-guided program. As soon as the federal government wakes up, then maybe we'll get our funds. So we've been funded, just don't have any money yet. When that happens, we'll be looking for caregivers who want to engage in a program that teaches them these skills in much more detail. We also just have lots of other studies available. We have a dementia caregiver clinic, which is telehealth and in person, but we can do care consultations with individuals. So we'd love to really connect with you guys and find out what resources we can help you with. And then I will leave this up here. This is my contact information. I will do Q&A. And the email for our center, if you have questions about this. And if you guys saw me last year, I used the same picture. It's one of my favorites, right? The dog. What's the dog thinking about? In the moment, right? That's why dogs are amazing. And then what's the human thinking about? Like all the other things, right? So we're going to try to be like the dog, okay? Trying to think about what's happening in the moment is sometimes so much easier than worrying about what lies ahead or worrying about the past, right? This very present moment focus. So, and I just always have to have a dog in all of my presentations. So